Okay, we're going to use our calculator at number 5. I went ahead and I graphed this function. Now let's adjust the window. So our domain or the x values will go from -1 all the way up to 5.5. And before I hit graph, let's go over some terminology: local and global, max and mins. So another word for global is absolute. When we think of absolute maximum and minimums, we mean there is one and only one point that stands out as the highest or the lowest. Where when you say global, it means that it still is a high point or greater than other points around it, or is a low point or lower than points around it. It just doesn't stand out as the highest or the lowest. So let's graph. Notice that when we look here, we're going to include -1 and we're going to include 5.5. So from here to here, what do we see? Well, this point down here, I need to adjust this window. It doesn't ask, by the way, it just asks us to identify how many are there in all. So we don't need to actually say where do they occur. So do I see a low point? Yes, this would be referred to as a global minimum from a domain of -1 to +5.5. This stands out as the lowest. So there is a global minimum. And I can't tell which one it is, but one of these is going to stand out as a global maximum. And I guess maybe we should go ahead and figure this out. Let's go to maximum, and I'm going to do -0.5 to +0.5. And we can see that the high point here occurs when the y value is 2. Let's come over here. Now I know that the domain went out to 5.5, so let's check at 5.5. We can see, oh, well, here's a problem. Look at this. At these two values, it has exactly a value of 2. So we do not have a global maximum. Global or absolute maximum means it stands out as the highest point within a graph. And our graph here is only going to run from -1 up to 5.5. So yes, we have one absolute minimum. Remember, another word for absolute is global. But what about locals? Well, local means again that it stands out as a low or a high, just not the highest. I would say that this right here at -1, this is a local minimum. So one local minimum. And these two would stand out as local maximums. So we have two more local maximums. A common question I hear students ask is, can there be more than one global maximum, or can there be more than one global minimum? And this is a perfect example. Both of these on this particular interval from -1 to 5.5 stand out as the highest points, but to be global or absolute maximums, there can be only one point that exists as the highest. And since these tie, both being at a height of y equals 2, there's not just one point that stands out at the highest. That's why they're classified as local maximums. So we have a total of 4 in all: one absolute minimum, one local minimum, and two local maximums.